going to tell you a little bit about the Oracle Apex product, but first, a terrible joke. Why did the chicken cross the road? Because he had an Access database with PHI stored on a flash drive and he accidentally dropped it over there. See, I told you it was a terrible joke. But it leads right into our conversation about Apex. Apex stands for Application Express, and it's a rapid development platform that you can use to create web-based applications with an Oracle database backend. It's an excellent alternative to creating databases using Microsoft Access. The development process using Apex is a very simple, mostly point and click kind of process, but you can use your own PL SQL code if you want to, or you have a need to do something that's more advanced. And I know everybody's just dying to see what the tool looks like and what you can do with it, so let's get started here. When you're developing a new application, the place to start is usually going to be with the SQL workshop. And we can go in there and create our databases. We'll go into the object browser here. In this case, we'll just select a database that we want to take a look at. And you can see here we can add a column, we can modify, rename, drop, we can truncate the table. We can pretty much do anything you would expect to need to do with a table. We can go in and see what the data looks like inside the table, and we can create, modify indexes, constraints, triggers, all of those things that you might need to do with a database. So once you have your database in place, if there's any reason that you need to run a query against it, we can go back in here to SQL Workshop. And this time we'll go to SQL Commands. And in this window is where you can type a query if you need to. And then we can execute this query and see what the result set looks like. So if you have any SQL that you're having trouble with, or you just need to take a look at the database or test out a query, this is the place to do it. So once your database is all in order, we're going to go over here to Application Builder. And this is where we could build a new application. For this demo, we're just going to go in and look at an existing application. So the application that we're going to work with is CHND, and this is something that we developed to solve one of our business problems for the Research Institute. And we'll go ahead and take a look at the application so you can see what it looks like, and then we'll go in and look at how the page was put together. So the first thing you can do is enter an MRN number here, and it'll bring back a list of matching visits. We're going to go ahead and select this top visit so we can see some detail. What this is going to bring up for us is a form for all of the data elements that the business user wanted to collect. And you can see that we've pre-populated some of the fields from our EDW data. So we already know what the admit date is and time. We know what the birth date is. Anything that we had already, we're going to pre-populate for that user so they don't have to re-enter it. Over here on the right, we have a little mini report that shows diagnoses because that's something that's important for this user. Gives them some direction in their process. We have a diagnosis list over here, also from the EDW, pertaining to that visit from that patient. So we can go ahead and dig in here and see how this particular page was put together. We're not going to get into everything, but at least we'll go over some of the high-level stuff. So you saw the two boxes that we had. One of them was a form box. The other one was the report box on the right. We have two regions listed here. So each box in an Apex application is referred to as a region. And we'll go ahead and drill into the report region. And if we scroll down here, you can see the SQL query that's populating that report. And one of the nice things here was that I didn't have to write the SQL code at all. I went through the process of creating a report and used their query builder tool to select the table I wanted to get, the columns I wanted to get, any where clause that I thought was important, and it writes the SQL code for you. Although you can obviously go in and modify it, or you could write your own if you need something very specific. When we click on the report itself instead of the report region, we can manage all of the columns that show up in the report. We can make changes to what the columns are called. We can change some of the formatting, or we can drill down into that column and get a lot more detail on how the column's displayed, formatted, pre-populated, etc. Now you also saw that we had a lot of what they call items on the page. So input text, you had select list, you had a date picker field, which gives you that nice little pop-up, so you click and you get a calendar. This is where all of those are created and managed. So if we need to add a new one, we go over here and click on the plus sign, and just for a test, let's add a text field box. And we're going to call it nickname. It's going to ask which region do you want it in. We want it in the demographics data region because that's our form region. We can click next. We're going to pretty up this name a little bit. Value required, do you want it to submit when you press enter? We don't need any of that for this. You can specify a source, so if you want it to pull data to pre-populate from some other field or from a database column, you can specify all of that here. And then we'll create the item. And now when we go back in and run the page, we have a new item called nickname all the way down here at the bottom. So it's really that simple to start building things and adding them to your page. But let's dig into some of the details now on this form item so you can see a little bit of what you can do with it. Obviously, you have all the same options that you had when you created it, but you have new formatting options. You can say whether it should begin on a new line or whether you want it next to whatever the item is before it. We have labeling options. There's a help option. So let's go ahead and scroll down here and we'll put in some help. We're just going to say patient nickname. And now we can go back up to the top and save the changes. And we'll rerun the page. And now when we scroll down, we can click on the nickname and we get that help text up here. So it's something that's really useful to make your applications more usable. So we've been using Apex to replace Microsoft Access databases, or in cases where historically maybe Access would have been a choice, we're using Apex instead. And the reasons for that, I'll give you the top 5. Apex is easily securable. There's authentication and authorization built in, not to mention that you can't just stick the Apex database on a thumb drive and accidentally lose it someplace. It's stored in the Oracle database on a managed server. The applications that you create are easily accessible because they're web-based applications. So there's no issue of, well, I put it on a network share. Do you have access to that network share? It's all available on the internet as long as you have access to our intranet. You can access it, and we can also expose it to an internet if that's something that you need. There's a rapid development cycle. You saw a little bit of how easy it is to start creating applications using Apex. Number 4, the data is stored in an enterprise strength database rather than an Access database, which was really meant for personal or small business. You really get the enterprise level Oracle database that all the data is stored in. And because we're storing it in that database, you can also interface with the data that's already in the database. So if you're using Apex and it's on the EDW database, your application can interface with any data that we already have in the enterprise data warehouse. Number 5, it's available for reporting through our standard reporting tools. So once you have your data submitted through Apex and it's stored in that Oracle database as part of the EDW, you can use our standard Crystal reports or Webby or whatever reporting tool you need to be able to get that data back out, format it the way you want it, even correlate it with other data that we have available. So that is all I have for my demonstration.